the first in Olympic surfing history.
This is surfing for the first time at the Olympics. The sport debuted at the Tokyo Games in 2021 and was held at a beach about 60 miles away. It's a popular surf spot in Japan, but for a competition between the world's best surfers, it's a bit underwhelming.
The wave's going to determine what you do. If the wave presents the opportunity for the air, you've got to take it.
The waves were about waist high for the first few days, then grew a bit, but were still far from great. That's about to change, though. In the 2024 Paris Games, surfers will take on waves that are likely going to be a lot bigger, and heavier, and faster, and a lot more dangerous. Because it's being held at a spot unlike any other, which you could probably guess isn't in Paris. It's not even in mainland France. It's 15,700 kilometers away in the French territory of Tahiti. For nearly 200 years, France has used Tahiti and the surrounding islands as a trading post, a colony, and even a testing ground. Now, it's using it as a stage for what could be the most dangerous Olympic event ever. But what makes surfing in Tahiti so risky? And how did these islands even become a part of France? Tahiti is in an absolutely perfect location for big waves. They're created by storms, which in the Southern Ocean are among the world's most powerful. As their winds hit the ocean's surface, they create pulses of energy called swells that radiate outward through the deep water. In the South Pacific, there's nothing to slow them down until they hit a ramp off the southern coast of Tahiti. Where most seafloors rise gradually over hundreds of kilometers, the seafloor here goes from 5,000 feet deep to a couple hundred over just a few kilometers. So as a fast-moving swell arrives, it doesn't have much time to slow down, and instead launches upward, resulting in a slab of water that Tahitians call Spinning Top, but that most of the world knows as Teahupo'o, after the beach that it breaks next to. It's also been called a freak of hydrodynamics and one of the most dangerous waves in the world. A Tahitian man was the first to be recorded surfing a giant wave at Teahupo'o in 1985. In 1997, a successful surfing competition here got many pro surfers to pay attention to it, but this wave remained unknown to most of the world until 2000. When this photo went viral. It was on the cover of Surfer magazine, and no one could believe their eyes.
This wave is estimated to be about 6 meters tall, but it's the sheer mass of it that makes it so frightening. Just a small piece of this lip weighs about 9,000 pounds, and it's crashing down towards the surfer, Laird Hamilton, who's just a few meters above a razor-sharp coral reef. I didn't realize he signed it. You can ignore that. The most astonishing part of this wave, though, is this, the tube.
Used to be in Hawaii, and as of right now, it looks like it's Tahiti. So tubes that I've had here in Tahiti were definitely the most dramatic to memory at this point.
There are bigger waves around the world, but Teahupo'o's tube is deeper and glacier. It's a surfer's dream.
This photo inspired hundreds of big wave surfers to go to Tahiti and try it out for themselves.
Since then, dozens have been seriously injured and 5 have died. Even still, professional surfing competitions are held here every year. The waves are biggest between April and October, when storms in the southern hemisphere are the strongest. It's perfect timing for the Olympics. That's what France couldn't resist. It has surf spots on the mainland, but since storms are weak during the northern hemisphere summer, the chance for good waves during the Olympics are slim. So it selected Tahiti, and was technically allowed to because it's a French territory. But putting a French sports event here means facing a dark past. So today is Friday. I just checked the surf forecast for Tahiti. It looks like pretty good surf for the start of the surfing competition. Obviously, the Olympics is a massive event. There are lots of different things that we could have covered, but I want to show you a website that I use to really sift through and figure out what's the most important stories of the day. It's called Ground News, and it's the sponsor for this week's episode. Ground News is a website, browser plugin, and app created to give readers a transparent, data-driven way to read the news. It has access to over 50,000 news sources across the political spectrum, and they've built a site with a lot of really innovative tools that makes reading the news more transparent. So I want to show you how it works. All right, so this is Ground News's website. If I want to find Olympic coverage, we'll go right here. And then we can see the top stories. Apparently there was a coordinated sabotage on the French railway. So we'll click this and we're going to see all the kinds of stories that are covering this incident. First is the coverage details. You can see a lot of people are covering it, 330. The most important tool for me, I think, is the bias distribution tool. It'll show you which outlets are covering the story and where on the political spectrum they lie. There's also the factuality, how trustworthy are these sources. Ground News uses data from 3 independent news monitoring services, so you can trust this information. And then here it shows the ownership, who owns these outlets. This is important because it changes how the story might be framed. So with those tools in mind, I can head over here. Here's how left-leaning organizations are covering it. So for example, right here, this is by France Info. It's a high factuality organization, leans left, but it's owned by the government of France. So that's really important to know. We can also go up here and look at stories that are coming from the right. Here is one from Sputnik Global, low factuality, and this outlet is actually owned by the government of Russia. One other thing I want to show you is the blind spot. This tool will show you if you're on the left, these are things that the right is reporting on that you might not see in your feed, and then vice versa for the right here. One tool I use all the time is international blind spots. This is great for Search Party. So go to ground.news/search party, and if you use this link, you'll get 40% off the Vantage plan. That's what I use. All their features will be unlocked. I think Ground News is doing really important work. I think if you like Search Party, if you like the news, you'll really like Ground News. So give it a shot. For now, we'll take you back to the episode.
This guy is the first known European to reach Tahiti. He had sailed all the way from Great Britain, and after landing in 1767, he claimed the island for the British King George III. Unaware, though, was a French sailor who landed here a year later and claimed it for France. Of course, both were ignoring the fact that many people were already there. At least 2,000 years earlier, humans had reached Tahiti, probably from East Asia. As they continued to spread through the Pacific, they developed their own culture, which Europeans eventually called Polynesian. Many Polynesian customs revolved around the ocean, like surfing, which they invented as a form of transportation and a sacred ritual. Not long after Europeans arrived, one sailor wrote about watching a Tahitian man paddling in a small canoe till he was near where the swell overtook him and carried him along until it landed him upon the beach. The sailor couldn't help but conclude that this man felt the most supreme pleasure. But the Europeans soon began dismantling Polynesian culture in order to build their own colonial empires. They first pressured Polynesians to convert to Christianity. Then they began taking power away from its leaders. The British and French battled each other for years for influence over Tahiti until the French made it its protectorate in the 1840s. Then after crushing Tahitian resistance, France pushed out its leaders and declared it a colony. By the 1890s, it had annexed all these islands too. French companies reaped huge profits by growing coconut oil here and by exploiting the local population as a cheap labor force. France then drafted many Tahitians to fight in the First World War and continued to treat most as second-class citizens. The French colonial empire peaked in the early 20th century, then began to decline as colonies declared independence. But France held on to French Polynesia. After the Second World War, it reclassified it as an overseas territory and gave it more autonomy while continuing to exploit it for its own interests. Between 1966 and 96, France conducted 193 nuclear tests in French Polynesia. It chose 2 uninhabited islands about 1,200 kilometers southeast of Tahiti, which they claimed were safe distances from people who lived on these islands. 147 tests were underground, but the 46 that were above spread deadly radiation far enough to devastate people's health, something French officials at the time weren't honest about. In 2013, the French government declassified documents that revealed the tests exposed Polynesians to between 2 and 10 times the amount of radiation than originally estimated, and French officials knew about it. Investigators later found evidence that people on these islands experienced a wave of cancer diagnoses, likely a result of these tests. It prompted France to set up a commission to compensate victims, but as of 2020, it's only paid 454 people, only 20% of the claims. The legacy of France's tests, along with its colonial past, still complicates its relationship with Tahiti today. Some Tahitian politicians argue for independence, but since much of the island's economy relies on French subsidies, a majority of Tahitians support staying. Still, it's why many Tahitians reacted with skepticism when French officials told them they were going to need to adjust to some big changes to host the Olympics. Despite its fame, Teahupo'o is a small town with only 1,500 residents, and France expects 1,500 visitors for the Olympics.
So it planned to build new roads and housing units, and even drill a 3-story aluminum judging tower here into the coral reef. Local Tahitians immediately protested against these changes. Many argued that the tower would permanently damage the reef. They convinced officials to scale back the size of the tower, use local homes and a cruise ship to house visitors, and minimize construction. But they couldn't stop the Olympics from coming. The Games are an excellent opportunity for Tahiti. Teahupo'o is the perfect stage for making surfing history, and it's a chance to get an economic boost. At the same time, they're a reminder that while Tahiti is far, it's still a part of France, but isn't always treated like it. All right, that's episode 16. Thanks so much for watching. The Olympics start tonight. Today's Friday. The opening ceremony is tonight. But it's the end of our little search party sports summer. We did a story about the Euros. We did a story about the Copa America. And we did 2 Olympic stories. They all did really well. They were really fun to make. But now it's time to get back to geopolitics. We've got a really cool story, really excited to share with you in 2 weeks. And so we'll resume, we'll go geopolitics and then we'll go back to sports. That's kind of our usual rotation. If you haven't subscribed yet to Search Party, now's your chance. If you want to be a member, we have a membership program. It's up and running. All the info you need is in the description below. Thank you all so much for subscribing, for commenting, for sending me emails. It's been really, really fun. And we'll see you in 2 weeks. All right, later.